On June 23, 2018, a group of boys aged 12-16 were playing soccer at a local field. These 11 boys had a coach and an assistant coach. The game continued under their supervision, and when it was over, the coach said goodbye to everyone and went to another field to train other kids. A good coach usually doesn't carry a phone during the game, and this coach had left his phone in his bag. While his phone was in the bag, the parents of the previous group of kids called him, but he didn't hear it. After a few hours of play, when the game was over and he checked his phone, he saw missed calls and messages from the parents asking why their kids hadn't come home and why they weren't answering their phones. The coach quickly started calling the 11 kids and the assistant coach, but none of them answered except for one. One of the 13-year-old boys, named Sang Paul, answered. Sang Paul said he didn't go with them, but all the other kids and the assistant coach went to the Thai cave, one of the largest and longest caves in Thailand. It started to rain heavily, and the coach became very worried. He quickly drove to the cave and saw the kids' bicycles there, confirming they had gone into the cave. The coach approached the cave entrance but saw something terrifying. Water was flowing into the cave like a river, making it impossible to enter. Realizing he had no choice, the coach called the police, who arrived with rescue teams. The rescuers entered the cave but found their path blocked by water. They realized this was beyond their capability and called for the Navy to send divers. At the same time, a British expatriate in Thailand named Vernon Unsworth, an experienced caver familiar with the cave, heard about the incident and rushed to help. Vernon knew the cave so well that he had its entire layout memorized. He guided the divers, telling them to go forward about a kilometer and exit the water at a junction, where he believed the kids might be. Vernon called two other British cavers, John Volanthen and Stanton, who were not only experienced cavers but also skilled divers, perfect for the rescue mission. Despite the heavy rain and rising water levels, they knew they had to act quickly as the kids had no food or water. When John and Rick arrived at the cave, the young Navy divers laughed, wondering what these two old men could do. However, they didn't know that experience was the key to success in this situation, and these older men had plenty of it. John later recounted that entering the water was easy at first, but soon they faced an uphill battle against the water pressure, requiring them to climb using the cave walls. Being experienced, they brought ropes to secure their path, tying them to rocks as they went. This not only marked their route for a quicker return, but also provided a faster way to move forward by pulling themselves along the ropes. Meanwhile, the Navy divers were bringing in powerful pumps to try and drain the water, hoping to at least prevent further flooding. Despite their efforts, John and Rick made it several hundred meters into the cave but had to return as their oxygen was running low. They knew they had to cover a kilometer to reach the junction and planned their oxygen usage carefully, ensuring they had enough for the return trip. After reaching the surface and swapping out their equipment, they quickly re-entered the cave. The Navy divers watched in awe as the two older men proceeded with their mission. Finally, they reached the junction but found no one there. John and Rick had calculated their oxygen use meticulously, using 1/3 for the trip in, 1/3 for the return, and keeping 1/3 as a reserve. They pressed on, diving another 2 kilometers and emerging on dry land, where they saw signs of life. John pulled out his camera and started filming as they moved forward.
How many of you? They're all alive. 13?
Yeah, 13.
Brilliant.
They had secured the path with ropes all the way to the kids, making it easier for the Navy divers to bring food and water to the children who hadn't eaten or drunk anything for 72 hours. Feeding the kids eased some worries, but now the challenge was how to get them out safely. Various suggestions were made, from bringing in powerful pumps to wait for the rain to stop, or even drilling a shaft from above. Elon Musk proposed a small submarine that could fit one person. Some suggested training the kids in diving, but John and Rick dismissed this idea, believing the children were too young to handle the stress. They focused on other options, knowing time was limited due to the limited oxygen where the kids were trapped. After a Navy diver died from lack of oxygen during a routine supply trip, the world realized the true danger and urgency of the situation. A new idea emerged, sedating the kids and bringing them out one by one under the guidance of experienced divers. Rick contacted his friend, Dr. Richard Harris, an anesthetist who was also a diver. Initially, Dr. Harris opposed the idea, citing high risks, but upon arriving at the scene and assessing the situation, he agreed it was the best option. The plan was for each diver to bring 2 doses of sedative and a diving suit for each child. Once they reached the kids, they would dress them in the suits, sedate them, and transport them out, ensuring they remained unconscious to avoid panic. Special masks that covered the entire face were made to prevent any detachment, and the kids' hands were tied to prevent movement. Each diver had to carry a child for several hours through the treacherous route, administering a second dose of sedative midway to keep them under. The first child was successfully brought out, followed by the second, third, and fourth. On the first day, they rescued 4 children. On the second day, another 4. On the third day, the plan was to bring out the last 4 kids and the assistant coach. However, they encountered a problem with the youngest child as the mask was too large. They had to use a smaller mask, securing it tightly, and fortunately the child was safely brought out. All the children and the assistant coach were eventually rescued, though 2 Navy divers lost their lives, one from oxygen deprivation and another from an infection after the operation. This successful rescue was not motivated by money, but by humanity and the spirit of helping others. It's a beautiful reminder of the importance of kindness and working together.